Welcome to the ThinkFWD Community Round Table. I'm Joe P., co-founder of ThinkFWD, CXO at Digital Surgeons. I'm joined by a lovely assortment of folks. If we want to just quickly go around the table and share just who you are and what you do.
Yep. So I'm Mikki Toledo. I'm a research strategist at DS.
I am Alyssa Callahan. I am the editor-in-chief of the ThinkFWD newsletter and a design strategist at DS.
And I'm Campbell. I'm a product designer at DS.
All right. Today's topic could arguably be a controversial one, depending on what your fix is. We're going to talk customer loyalty programs, specifically the Dunkin redesign. So to get started, I want to hear from you guys. Maybe you first, Mikki.
Yeah.
As you have the Dunkin cup, you
Yes.
are sort of the resident aficionado here. Why the controversy?
To begin, just a lot changed overnight, right? So you went from having just 200 points to having, 900 points be what you could earn towards the signature latte or a frozen drink. And the amount of money that you earn, or the amount of points, I should say, that you earn per dollar has gone up, but also the points for either a latte or a coffee have also gone up. And so there was a lot of outrage because you have to now spend more to earn less in a lot of people's eyes. And people who love Dunkin' Donuts, competition is out there, so there's better programs, and a lot of people just deleted the app right off their phone.
So I can confidently say that I'm kind of in that camp. So for me, Dunkin' is the bee's knees for me. I'm not a Starbucks girl. I'm a Dunkin' girl. I always have been. And for me, I was a little bit of a laggard. I didn't start using the app until probably about a year ago. And once I started using it, I was hooked, right? Because I was going to Dunkin' so often. Why not reap those rewards? And I started loving it so much. I was getting a free coffee like every week because I was going every day anyway. And then overnight, this app happened, and it instantly turned me off. I'm already a fickle app user. Like, it has to be a good experience for me to want to open it and use it for my transactions and all of that kind of stuff. So for me to start using the Dunkin' app in the beginning was already like a decent feat, and it had to be a good experience to begin with. And then when everything changed, I can confidently say I have not used it since. So I went from literally going to Dunkin' almost every day, getting my coffee through the app, getting my rewards, to I haven't even truthfully been to Dunkin' in probably 2.5 weeks now. And you can see I don't have my Dunkin' cup because for whatever reason it turned me off so much that I find no value in it. So I'm one of those. I would have deleted my app if I felt like it.
So did you order ahead of time as well through the app?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because that's what I primarily use it for. I don't even check the rewards points. I see I have like 400. I don't really know, I don't redeem them or anything. They kind of expire, maybe. I don't keep up with it. I do order ahead as a functionality. It crashed on free, coffee day, which was sad.
Oh, boo.
But they acknowledged it nonetheless. It was nice. But I'm more of the Starbucks app user, just because the rewards program and the stars make a lot of sense to me. And I can they even show right on the home screen, it's $1 equals X amount of stars and how many stars you earn per purchase. So it's it makes sense where you're spending your money and where it's going. So for me, it's just a lot clearer that way. And then you can redeem those stars exactly one for one with actual cash. So
Interesting.
yeah, right from, you can have separate gift cards and combine them, which was a huge thing for me, versus having all these different gift cards that we get sometimes. So yeah, for me, I don't know, the Dunkin' redesign didn't really impact me, but I've heard the extreme outrage. And I do see now, for getting a cup of coffee, it's a ton of points I'm never even going to come close to anyway.
So you're using the app, though, out of convenience, right? You want it for mobile order ahead sort of deal.
Yeah. So I guess I'm a different user than you. You're there for the rewards, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas I'm I just want to go in, get my coffee, and leave.
So it's interesting, right? I'm going to go back to what you were saying, Alyssa, about you go for your coffee, right? And I think that's probably at the core of all of this, we talk about like why redesign the loyalty program? Is it a bait and switch? Is it pay more, get less? But you were going for the coffee, right? I think one of the biggest things that I've seen with the redesign is just the way it worked, right? Like take away the point system in general. The whole psychology that was built for DD perks was the more free coffees you get, or free drinks you get, right? Didn't matter which one it was free. But it seems like over the course of this program, specifically, they've almost flipped it on its head. It's no longer go get your free drink, it's buy your drink and get free whatever you want, right? Which sort of changes the frame, right? And it begs the question strategically, like what was the real intent of doing this? Is it, trying to curb inflation, right? Which could totally be the case, but are they trying to go after and capture more of the food market, right? As opposed to just the drinks. So I don't know. I mean, I thought it was interesting. You said you were on the fence in the first place, but do you even care about the food, right? For you, is it the coffee? Like, what's your thought there?
So what's really funny, listening to you say this, it just made me realize again that it's Dunkin' Donuts, right? So over time, we've kind of disassociated Dunkin' Donuts with the donuts themselves. For me, at least, it's more coffee. It's a coffee experience. I don't really get the food there. I know a lot of people do. It's just not something that I've ever really done. But I'm not a breakfast person, really. Right. So I'm a coffee. I drink coffee in the morning, and that's good enough for me. But it is interesting that it's kind of bringing Dunkin' back to its roots of Dunkin' Donuts, putting the emphasis more on the food aspect of it or the baked goods. And maybe there is a strategy behind that. Maybe there is a reason. Maybe it's financial, the economic downturn or whatever we call it, inflation. Maybe it was a more strategic thing economically, but maybe there's more to it than that. Maybe it's more about positioning Dunkin' again as your go-to for food as well. So I could see that.
So I just want to jump in here. So how much do we typically spend on like a breakfast sandwich? We're thinking $3-4, right? How much for a cup of coffee? $2 something. If you got like a fancy one with almond milk, maybe $4. But it sounds like maybe they want more revenue from the food, because if you have a really good breakfast sandwich, like at Starbucks, you could charge $5.25, $6 for it. Versus a coffee will always be a coffee. It's always going to be cream and sugar or almond and sugar or the likes of it. So I think they're trying to create a system in which more people buy into the food, because I think that's where the money comes from. I don't think the money comes from the coffee.
Really? See, I think I paid, $8 for a breakfast sandwich yesterday, which is insane, right? It's kind of funny. I'm thinking, in 2020, I can get my cold brew, I can get a breakfast sandwich, $8, and I'm like, okay, I could do it. And then it was like, cool, I got my free coffee, and the sandwich was still $8.
Yeah.
Like, oh, man. So it is interesting, though. Like, I'm curious to know, right, where do they make their margin, truly? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it's probably a couple Google searches away, right, to figure it out. But I think what you bring up, Alyssa, is really interesting from a brand perspective, right? We've seen this. Everyone's sort of thinking about their brand identity and sort of reducing to scale up their businesses. They're no longer called Dunkin' Donuts. They're now just Dunkin', right? And they've completely gone nationwide of making the effort to just be Dunkin' or Dunks or whatever you want to call it, right? But at the same token, it's like now sell more food. So I don't know. It gets to be like a really, really interesting position of like, what's the long game here?
I wonder too, because it's always been America runs on Dunkin', and you assume that with energy, you assume that with coffee, like you're hyped up, you're ready to go for the day. But yeah, I guess like now maybe they're trying to take over more of that market where it's like, not only is it like the rush, it's like it's that food too that gets you going and the whole complete meal. I mean, with the deals and the rewards program, do you know if it's like, I mean, I think you mentioned, but like, is it a coffee with a food? Like, is it combining the two? Because then that really supports that more, I think.
So the new rewards, previously, so just to give some context, previously you had a completion or achievement bar, whatever you want to call it. And the max you can get is 200 points, which equated to $40. Now, with that 200 points, it automatically gave you a free beverage. And the important thing to note here is that it included signature premium coffees. So you could cash it in for any drink you want. In the new program, You have a bar that now goes up to 900 because the 900 points is for a signature coffee drink. So the way that people were looking at this was, well, now if I want that signature latte, which is the one with the whipped cream and, the caramel or whatever, it's going to cost me 900 points versus in the past, it was only really costing me 200 points. And so it's gone from I get my free signature latte for $40 to I have to spend over $90 in order to get that same drink. And that's where a lot of the outrage came from, and that's where that's the biggest shift in their reward system. But now you could have food be included in that. So you have and I'll just kind of open it up right now. You have your reward I don't know if the camera could see that, but you have the achievement bar, and you could just cash it in for a drink, food, espresso, donuts. So the rewards have expanded, but the amount to get your free, what you would have been looking forward to before, has more than doubled.
So I'm a huge gamer, right? Which is why
Right.
I look at this as gamification, right? Which we know is popular. I know, Jordan, you are too, right? So I'm interested to know the psychology behind this, right? I'm curious to hear your perspective here. But if you think about what they've done, right, to the whole signature point now, hurts people like me where I'm looking to cash in big. It's like, cool, free drink. I'm going as large as I can get. Signature, craft, all the fixings for free, which is arguably the same as if I got, a medium or a small hot coffee. But what they've done in this is they've actually lowered the threshold for the smaller things, right? Cool. So I don't need to spend $90 to get 3 donut holes. I can get 3 donut holes for 150 points. I could spend it faster. So how does that land for you? And you think about as a product designer and gaming and gamification and the way our brain processes reward systems like that. Is it a smarter play? Is it a better play to be able to let people cash in at lower thresholds and then scale them up? Or is it better to just give them what they want with a little bit more consistency and frequency?
I think it's definitely a play to get them in the door, overall. If you, I don't know how the rewards work, but let's say it's 50 points for a few slices of bacon. You're not just going in there for bacon, unless you're purposely on a budget or anything. But you're going to go in there and you're going to look at the menu and be like, man, I love Dunkin. I'm going to get a coffee too. I'm going to get a sandwich. I might as well, I already have 50 cents off or, whatever for the bacon. I might as well just get the rest of my meal here. So I think it's a way to get them in the door and spend more with the points. And I just love seeing the differences in all of our completion bars with it too. I saw yours is overcharged or something. It's all orange. Mine's barely even a fraction full, and it looks different. It makes you feel different. I've accomplished something in this app. I'm fulfilling my bar. For me, I'm I maybe get part of the way there, and I can maybe redeem something. But you're saving. You track the points, so it really shows just this one function in the app alone, right on the main screen, what type of person uses the app. And I think it's really cool.
So that brings up a really good point. And I thought about this too when you were talking about expanding. So that's your point about all of us using this app differently is why it's so important to understand all of the different segments and audience types that you have within your consumer base. And that's why we do things like personas and UX personas and different ways people are using your product. Because for me, you mentioned, and this is true for a lot of people, this is an expanded rewards program. For a lot of people, this is giving you access to things that you never had before. So you could look at it that it's a better offering because it's more expanded. For me, it's more narrowed because I don't go for the food. So for me, you've taken away the real benefit that I actually had. And it's not that I don't see the reward in it. It just doesn't apply to me anymore. And it's because I'm a different consumer than you are, and then you are, and then you are. So that's why it's so important to understand all of the different subsets of your consumer audiences that you need to reach with your product or with your customer experiences or any experience that you deliver. It's not just a one-size-fits-all at any time.
Well, it's at what cost, right? And think about anyone who's a marketer, right? And their job is to think about CX and engagement and, different cohorts of their brand. You are, right, in theory or in principle, right, you're expanding, you're widening your ability to capture more people's interests, needs, preferences, right? Versus before, it was you were really targeting the people who are going for their coffee every morning, and right, you're going to continue to reward and double down on those folks. So, I often think about is it worth upsetting that audience, sort of that core base, at the expense of widening your net, right, and getting more engagement in the app, right? And I think it's partly, psychology takes over at some point, or it's learned behavior, right? DD Perks launched, and for the people who did care about it, they were like, oh yeah, I'm going to get this and I'm going to cash in, and that's what they know and love. And then the minute you flip the switch and change it, you've inherently upset them. Like, you're going to upset them no matter what you did. It's like, pick your battles, right? So like, is it worth it? And at what price, right? And I'm curious to know, right, as someone who, Mikki, you're probably in the sweet spot of the DD Perks consumer, right? The
Right.
previous one, did that affect you as a consumer, thinking like, you know what, I'm going to go somewhere else. Like, maybe I'll entertain Starbucks once in a while because I'm not feeling it. Or maybe you're like, I don't care. It's going to force me to try something new every once in a while.
So the reason why it hasn't bothered me so much is because I am a person to be one of routine. And the best thing about this, when I learned about it, was that the more frequently you go within 1 month, you are rewarded. So you usually get 10 points per $1 spent. But if you go 12 times in a month, which, because I'm a person of habit, I get $12 per $1. I get 12 points per $1 spent. So I am therefore rewarded for the frequency versus rewarded for the amount spent. $40 is $40. But going 12 times in a month, I believe, is what they're trying to encourage their audience or their customer base.
I also think the one thing they did really, really well in all of this, especially as someone who does like Dunkin, right? It's the frequency game for sure, but it wasn't just changing the reward thresholds. Mm-hmm. The fact that they also have on a monthly basis and it resets, you now get extra unlocks. So they're basically incentivizing you to go more often, right? So 4 times a month, 5 times a month, there's different deals you can activate that are only good in that moment, right? So buy a coffee, get a free sandwich. Buy a coffee, get a 10-count Munchkins, right? So they're inherently trying to drive frequency, which actually is a pretty smart play, I think.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, when we talk about different audience bases, now I'm the kind of person to go in, get my stuff, and leave. If they are trying to appeal to the people who want food and more of a cafe vibe, I'm wondering if the actual physical structure of Dunkin' will change. Because now you look at Starbucks, you look at Dunkin'. Starbucks is come, sit down, enjoy your sandwich, stay for a while, plug in your computer. Dunkin' Donuts is not set up that way. They're very much still like, here's what the line is, we've got a couple seats, and get out as soon as you get your stuff. So I'm wondering if maybe they have discovered something that we want people to not only come more frequently, but stay longer. And if that is a business model that's going to produce more revenue for them in the long run versus that quick, snappy, get your stuff and leave. And I think that's especially true now that a lot of people work from home. People can work anywhere. So you're not rushing to catch that train or rushing to get to that meeting at 9 a.m. as soon as you start. You now have that leisure time to maybe, you could stay.
Yeah, and I'll do that on certain days. Like, I'll switch it up. I'm like, I'm falling into too much of a rhythm at home. Like, I'm not even noticing the days change. So I'm like, I need to switch it up. I'll go to like a Starbucks because it is different and I get that cafe vibe. But like, I'll go to Dunkin' Donuts sometimes. But the thing too, and like exactly what you said, I'll go up and repurchase something. Like, I'll get another sandwich or I'll get another donut. Like, because I'll just see them over there and I'm like, I was gonna be good, but then I see a chocolate glazed donut, it's game over. So it's like, at what point do we start noticing, like, or they start noticing the trend of like more people are going to their restaurants sitting down? Maybe they use the camera somehow to notice that. But that's super interesting because you see McDonald's redo their structures every 10 years. I haven't seen a Dunkin' Donuts change theirs in like decades.
Right. Well, so I got a lot of thoughts on this. I got to share. I'm super, super pumped about this. So what I actually think they're doing is doubling down on their brand promise. And I'll tell you why specifically. So for sure, all of the changes in the economy and consumer behaviors with the pandemic, 100% just food service in general, right? Brands are having a hard time finding folks to work, right? physical locations are in question, right? Even Taco Bell are completely rethinking the drive-through experience. There's something to be said about that, but I'll set that aside for a second. If you look at the heart of their brands, where they're fundamentally different, I actually think is where Starbucks and Dunkin' are interesting, because they've both, it seems like through customer loyalty, they've both doubled down on the core of their brand. Dunkin' is really at its core about, getting people, it's like on the move, right? It's America runs on Dunkin'. They had that whole campaign or a platform built around that, where by design it was like get your coffee and get on your way. That's the model, right? And I think the frequency being able to go through and getting people to engage that way in and out makes total sense. It's sort of the transaction. Starbucks on the other side, if you've ever looked at any of their brand documents, and they've actually recently started talking about this with the new Odyssey experience, which we got to talk about for sure. And the core of their brand is what they call third place, right? It's the place between work and home. Starbucks, right? So it's interesting. By design, their entire brand is about getting you to sit there, to be part of the atmosphere, to have conversations, to do business deals, do your work, and buy the extra donut, buy the second cup of coffee, and chill for a while, right? Like that's part of the whole customer experience as you think about rituals and all sorts of things like that. And then, you think about what they've just done with the Starbucks Odyssey experience, their foray into Web3, beyond a stunt, right? They almost went the total opposite direction as Dunkin', and they were like, you know what? This is where people are going. We're trying to build that atmosphere virtually. Right, we want a community that's going to be able to trade stamps with each other and get into that space, which is a totally different spin on loyalty, like what you were talking about, which the whole stars, like one for one, you're getting, you can trade, right? So I don't know, I think it's interesting because we're always in this brand space of like, what is at the core of their brand? What does it mean?
And I think to your point too, like reinforcing it is like you see Starbucks always in like a Barnes and Noble. You're like going to read, you're going to trade books and talk about different books with people, maybe even study. But like on the way home, there's a Dunkin' Donuts that's combined with a Bank of America. Like they're both drive-through. There's no going in. They're just drive-throughs. So I think that really reinforces that point really well.
Yeah, for sure. And actually on that note, so I want to hear, because I know we're running a little bit low on time. What are your thoughts on Starbucks Odyssey, or just sort of their pivot on the loyalty program from anyone? I know we got some Dunkin' fans, but.
I mean, me personally being kind of the larger Starbucks fan here, I haven't really checked it out, and I'm a Web3 person. I think for me, it's like, what is the long-term promise of it? Will it stick around? Will it actually catch? Because I think for me right now, it's like they're getting into it, they're getting familiar, but I could see them doing another better version in a year or two. That's usually my stance with most of the Web3 stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you're in experimental mode, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely interesting that they've tried to lay their claim and make a stake in it now, even though it's not out yet, right? It's join the wait list. I mean, they could have waited until it launched and then just opened the floodgates, but they were like, you know what? We're going to make the investment in Web3. Let's do it now. I don't know if any of you have read any of the way in which it's going to work, but what I actually appreciate about it is they're not even calling NFTs. They're calling them stamps.
Yeah, I think that's super awesome for getting different types of people into the Web3 space without like bringing back like the news that they've seen where it's sketchy and money's been taken and their wallets are gone. Like for people, it's just like, oh, it's like a harmless stamp. That's cute. Like that, my mom would actually get into that based on that. Like, but if I tell her about crypto, she's like, is it safe? Is that okay? But you like had mentioned something earlier about having the stamps and a passport, and I think that's a cool way to bring it together.
Yeah, so when I worked at Starbucks, they had something called the Starbucks Passport, in which every time you tried a coffee from a different country, you could redeem a stamp. So I feel like that's a really interesting way of taking something that has worked in the physical world and then translating it into something Web3.
Dig it. All right, so I know we're definitely pretty close to time here. So just one quick go around. So what do we think the future of CX, specifically customer loyalty, looks like?
I think it's going to be a great return back to being personable. It's going to get very personable or very personal more than it was before. We went from, your Dunkin' person knowing your name to them not knowing your name, to them trying to bring that back. So I think that the rewards program will eventually become a more personal space.
I agree. I think the benefit of having this all in an app is data, right? They have the data to know what your transaction history is. They know what you like. They know what you frequently purchase. Why not have a dynamic experience that's tailored to each person? Why can't the rewards program give me a different reward at 200 points as it does for you or for you or for you? We have this information. We have this technology. Why not use it to make a better experience for everybody, regardless of, what the tiers are, or, that would have surprised me and delighted me. I would be a fan for life. If you know exactly what I'm thinking and what I'm wanting and you can give me that, then I'm in.
And I was thinking the exact same thing. It's all about data. So like they're seeing where people are going to use these rewards now. And to your point, they narrowed it down. They expanded it. I think they're going to expand it for now, what you're able to do with the rewards. And then it's going to start narrowing again based on what you like and tailor it to you. Because all the social media apps are doing it anyway. They might as well follow suit and see what works for them.
Absolutely. And I'm just hoping I get my free birthday drink back if nothing else. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for joining. Thanks, everyone who's sitting here watching us banter about the Dunkin, customer loyalty program. That's all for today. So if you're interested in picking a topic, being a part of the discussion, definitely let us know. Otherwise, be sure to check us out at ThinkFWD.co or join the Discord and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, we'll see you soon.